back to another episode of Sloppy Saturdays, and today we are going over our Week 8 recap. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I did miss a lot of these games. I had a lot of stuff going on this weekend. I went back, looked at all the games that I want to talk about today. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter, quick style recap, but I do want to go over a lot of these games, as this was a huge slate, really a huge SEC slate, really good matchups, and again, another week that told us a lot about some of these college football teams. Not only that, I feel like I'm going to get into it in this episode, but we got to go outside of our mold a little bit in this new era of college football, because I feel like we're not giving some teams enough credit as we should in this, major turn of college football in the last couple of years. How a lot of these teams that normally in the last 20, 25 years haven't had a shot are now rising up. So let's get right into everything. Now, the first matchup I do want to get over is the Friday night matchup between Louisville and Miami. Now, I personally believe that, again, like I said, in this new age of college football, pretty much anybody could get upset. We saw Miami come into this game as a number 2 seed, and Louisville upsets them at home. Like I said, anybody could be upset. We're looking at an Alabama team in week 1 that we look at now as a top national championship contender, got upset by a Florida State team that, again, looks even worse than it did at the time. So, and then you look at now against Miami, against Louisville, another upset to the number 2 team in the country at the time. So anybody can be on upset alert. Like I said, in this new age college football NIL era, the playing field is more even than ever, and you're going to see more and more upsets. Now, do I think Miami should have lost this game? No, they should have never lost this game. They have the talent to win this game. But I feel like they kind of overlooked Louisville in a sense. And Louisville is a team that, again, came into this game 4-1. They played a Virginia team that they took to overtime. That's a pretty good football team. So, again, Louisville is not a bad team by any mentions, and their defense absolutely balled out. When we look at a defense getting 4 interceptions in a game, you're going to win that game most likely. Now, I do love how Louisville came out in this game. You come out, you score a touchdown, you get a stop, you score another touchdown. That's my favorite thing when you're looking at in-conference matchup, road dog. When you come out and set the tone of the game, that really proves a lot to me. Now, Miami, for the first time, I believe, all season, really had to come back from behind in this game. And we saw Carson Beck. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I love Carson Beck. He absolutely folded in this game. He threw 4 interceptions. Again, I thought 2 of them were some pretty spectacular plays. When we look at Miami at the end of this game, having a drive to pretty much tie it or win it when you're down 24-21 and you throw a ball that's just a flat-out bad ball. The cornerback just completely jumped around, and it was just like a lazy ball to me. And again, there were other deceptions in this game as well. I thought the deep ball to Malachi Toney as well, that was severely underthrown. I thought that was a bad ball. Again, I feel like Carson Beck looked like a little too lax in this situation, and I feel like it came back to bite Miami. And this is the Carson Beck that we saw last year that, while I was sticking up for, a lot of people hated on when he had a multi-turnover game. We saw games last year we had 2+ interceptions. So this is a game where Miami, in my opinion, really had to have this game, and they didn't. Because now when you look at the ACC, there are multiple undefeated teams in the ACC, and this could cost Miami not making an ACC championship. And in my opinion, Miami could really only lose 1 more game, which puts a lot of pressure on them. And they really can't lose another in-conference matchup because, again, they want to make the ACC championship. Can they get into the college football playoffs with 2 losses? Possibly, but with the ACC schedule, you're not going to be favored, like I've been mentioning, over SEC teams, over Big Ten teams. So I feel like this loss was so monumental because it was an in-conference loss. And credit to Louisville. Louisville has a really good team. We talked about Isaac Brown in the offseason, how good of a running back he is. He rushes for 113 yards in this game. Miller Moss played a good game. He didn't turn the ball over. He was 23 for 37, 248 yards, 2 touchdowns. We know the talent Miller Moss has. Chris Bell had a great touchdown in this game where he completely turned out burners. He had a really nice game, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's having a great year as well. This Louisville team is definitely something to watch out for. Again, they put Miami on upset alert. They were unranked coming into this game, but they're now 5-1 in the ACC. They have enough talent on offense, in my opinion. Miller Moss hasn't been playing as a lot of people thought he would throughout the season, but he plays big in this big matchup, and their defense was absolutely flying. Carson Beck, he cannot have this game. He cannot have a game like this where he completely takes Miami out of the game. This was a guy that we were looking at as one of the best quarterbacks in college football before this game, and you completely take yourself out of the Heisman race again. If he's a team player, you shouldn't care about that. You should care about putting Miami in the playoffs, but you would have lost this game and you would have threw an interception or two, and again, wasn't your best game. You could have stood in this Heisman race. You throw 4 interceptions with how a lot of these quarterbacks are playing right now. You're completely out of the Heisman race, and you could really point at Carson Beck for Miami and losing this game. Like I said, in a 3-score game in a 3-point game where you got to come back from behind and you throw multiple bad balls, you're never going to win a game where your quarterback throws 4 interceptions. And I get it. This Miami rushing attack really could not get anything going on the ground. I get it. They were coming from behind, but they had points in this game where they really could have, rushed the football, and they didn't. Only rushing for 63 total yards. Malachi Toney looks absolutely phenomenal still. Like, again, we talked about Carson Beck left a couple balls on the table, but still a guy with 9 receptions, 135 yards. CJ Daniels looked good with 7 receptions for 74 yards. Like, this Miami team has a ton of talent, and I don't want this Miami team to go down the same way they did last year. We saw this Miami team last year have a ton of talent. You could argue even more talent than this year, and they lost games where they should have lost, and that cost them a college football playoff spot. I don't want to see that again, but I'm nervous with this Miami-Louisville game that's what we could possibly be seeing. All right, now which game are we going to go into? I kind of want to go in order, so I'm going to go with LSU Vanderbilt. This LSU Vanderbilt game was absolutely phenomenal, and this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about original college football landscape and undervaluing certain teams. Vanderbilt came out and beat LSU. I get it. They were home, but this is a matchup in previous years. I mean, you saw the stats. This was the first time Vanderbilt was favored against LSU in I don't know how many years. And this just shows the shift of college football where a team like Vanderbilt could upset a historically great SEC team. And again, it wasn't even an upset. They were favored in this game. Now, the one thing I do want to go over, thought Garrett Nussmeier played pretty good. I thought this was one of his better games of the season. He was 19 for 28, 225 yards, 2 touchdowns. It seemed like they were always behind in this game, though. Davion Thomas showed his burst. He had 75 yards and a touchdown. Trey'Dez Green has been showing up for this LSU team as well. Again, this is a 6'7" tight end, so he's a complete mismatch for them, for any opponent. The rushing attack wasn't as great as it could have been. Caden Durham had a really nice long rush that was able to put LSU in the end zone. But listen, this Vanderbilt team is for real. They're really good in the trenches, and you have a guy in Diego Pavia that's putting his team on his back in certain games. Now, when we looked at Diego Pavia against Alabama, I told you guys, you have to have your best game to beat teams like this, especially as a Vanderbilt. And he didn't have his best game against Alabama, but he had his best game against LSU. He was 14 for 22 for 160 yards and a touchdown, but what he was able to do on the ground really impressed me. 17 carries, 86 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Eli Stowers is an absolute beast. He didn't really show up in this game like I thought he was going to, but he's definitely his best target. They ran the ball for 239 yards, which, again, you run the ball for 239 yards, you're going to win the football game in the trenches. And they did it with a bunch of different ball carriers. They had Malakin Young, Cedric Alexander, Trey Richardson, and then obviously Diego Pavia rushed for 86 yards as well. So what they were able to do on the ground, double LSU's rushing total. And Diego Pavia, again, points in this game, putting his team on the back. Again, I think there was a major I believe it was a 4th-and-1, where he rolled out all the way to the right, hit somebody on the left. There was just a point in this game where Vanderbilt just had too much momentum. Diego Pavia looked like Superman. And I got to give this guy a lot of credit again. This was a guy that, again, I'm still not a huge fan of. I believe he talks way more than he should. And I think it caught to bite him in a couple of different matchups. But this is a Vanderbilt team now that's 6-1. This is a Vanderbilt team now that's 10th in the country. And again, do I believe in them as a national championship contender? No. I believe when they played Alabama, Alabama is a national championship contender, and there was a difference right now in the gap between them. LSU is a team in the beginning of the year we definitely thought could have been a national championship contender, but we saw throughout this season that they're just a pretty good football team. And I feel like LSU, again, I said it time and time again, they're a football team that I believe is not getting the most out of their talent. Again, is that a coaching mistake? I'm not the biggest Brian Kelly guy, but Vanderbilt beats a really good SEC football team, and now we seriously got to look at them as a college football playoff team. Again, they haven't really made me believe they're a national championship contender. I'm not going to go that far, but they could definitely be a college football playoff team. They beat an LSU team that's a really good football team, a top team in the SEC. They beat them, so you got to give them their respect there. Diego Pavia, phenomenal game. Where are we going to go to next? Oh, I actually want to go to what was an unranked matchup in this college football slate, which is surprising. We're going over two unranked teams. Michigan, I didn't check. They should be ranked after this game. They should be back into the ranked category. Michigan has a huge bounce back win after what happened against USC in the previous week. They win this game 24-7 now. Why I believe this game was so monumental is because going into this game, I'm going to put my hand up. I thought Washington was one of the most underrated teams in the entire country. I thought Demon Williams was playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I believe Demon Williams' skill set is, like I said, one of one right now in college football. What he's able to do running the football, what he's able to do with his arm. He gives me now more shades of Kyler Murray. But again, we did not see Kyler Murray in this game. When you look at Michigan, what they were able to do on the defensive side of the ball in the second half, this was a 7-7 game. And like again, I believe Washington is a really good football team. But this game for Washington was so big for me because we saw a Washington team look dominant against every single team but Ohio State. And I gave them a pass for Ohio State. We're going to get into Ohio State. I think Ohio State, not only are they the biggest national championship contender right now, I don't really know if I see anybody beating Ohio State. I think they're so far ahead of anybody right now. So I gave Washington that pass. But then you play a really good team in Michigan, and I thought this was a chance where we could say, hey, does Washington really deserve to be ranked? Like, I thought they deserved to be ranked coming into this matchup. They were not. This was their opportunity to get ranked, being this Michigan team, and they just could not hang. Demon Williams in the second half was absolutely confused. He threw for 3 interceptions. When you look at the best running back, one of the best running backs in the country, in Jonah Coleman, only rushing for 50 yards and 16 carries, and Denzel Boston having a decent game but being contained. When you look at that big three and what Michigan was able to do to Demon Williams, confusing him, shutting down Jonah Coleman, containing Denzel Boston, like phenomenal job for Michigan on a defensive side of the ball. And again, we talked about this Michigan team, how it does have limitations. Bryce Underwood played what might have been his best game in this entire college football season. When we look at the matchup again, you look at Bryce Underwood against a cupcake. Yeah, he has better numbers, but against a pretty solid matchup, he goes 21 for 27, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, the biggest thing for this Michigan team for me is their limitations. We have talked about it week to week. Again, is it possible that they have a route to sneak into the college football playoffs? Yes, they would have to beat Ohio State again, probably, which I don't think it's just going to happen this year. But again, you can never count Michigan out in that matchup, so I'm not going to do that. But this Michigan team is a team that really seems like they could only play in close games or games that they're ahead of. When they're behind, like we saw in USC, and Bryce Underwood has to drop back and throw, as a true freshman, he looks uncomfortable to me. And with his weapons right now, that, again, doesn't have outstanding weapons and a offense that relies on the run game, this Michigan team has to be in a tie game or leading for them to win. And that's exactly what happened here. In the second half, it was just Michigan just completely outplayed Washington in the second half. Like I said, when you look at the defense, getting to return over in the second half. When you look at the run game, Jordan Marshall was absolutely phenomenal, in my opinion. He had 25 carries for 133 yards and a touchdown, taken over. Again, I think he did phenomenal. The biggest thing for me with this Michigan team as well, not only are they great running the football, not only are they great in the trenches, they do have a really good defense. But I think this Michigan team is so young, and you're looking at a team right now that might miss out on the college football playoff this year. But when you look at Bryce Underwood, obviously we know the talent he has as a freshman. When you look at Jordan Marshall in his second year, he's going to be on this team probably for another 2 more years. Andrew Marsh, a freshman as well, a guy that has some burst. The freshman on his offensive line. Like, if you keep this unit together for 3 years, you could really be looking at something special. This is, again, the year where everybody's learning. This is going to be a really competitive football team, a team, in my opinion, at the end of the year that's going to be ranked. But again, they do have their limitations, but this was a massive win and a massive loss for both sides, in my opinion, because we were really looking at this game. I said it, like, is Washington for real? They have the talent, they have the coach. This was a matchup that I thought really could have proved that they were a ranked team. They did not come to play. And Michigan, again, needed this bounce back win against a solid team. And again, Michigan shows when they're in the lead, their defense really steps up, and their run game is bar to none. Their run game is one of the best in the country. So, huge win for Michigan. I guess we have to pump the brakes on Washington. Now, the next game we're going to get into, I want to get into Tennessee, Alabama. I really do. Now, when this game started, I thought this game had the possibility of being a really good game. I thought when we saw how this game panned out, when we saw in the second quarter Tennessee tied the game, when we saw like, again, a 7-7 game midway through the second quarter, I was thinking, hey, this could be a really good game. Although I thought Alabama was going to dominate this game because Alabama was just completely on a roll right now. When we look at Alabama, after getting this 37-20 win against Tennessee, you're looking at them having 4 straight now SEC ranked wins. Like, Alabama is absolutely rolling, and the reason why they're rolling, again, they're clicking on all cylinders, but it really comes down to this team is going as far as Ty Simpson takes them. Ty Simpson right now, do I believe he is the top Heisman candidate? No, because I think you have Fernando Mendoza and Julian Sayin, whose team have, impeccable resumes. Like, they're undefeated. You have this Alabama team that had an upset in week 1. So that's something that's holding me back of him being a top Heisman candidate. But do I think Ty Simpson right now and in the last 4 weeks is playing the best football out of any quarterback? I personally don't even think it's close. Like, Ty Simpson is playing absolutely phenomenal. And the best thing about Ty Simpson is, again, his size doesn't blow you away. His arm strength doesn't blow you away. His legs does not blow you away. But when you look at Ty Simpson, I think he's just so far ahead of any college football quarterback right now. When you're looking at pre-snap reads, when you're looking at throwing with anticipation and accuracy at the same time, like, Ty Simpson looks cool in the pocket. Like I said, he's able to read the defense before every play. Not only is he throwing with accuracy, he has the best anticipation as well. He looks absolutely phenomenal. He looks like a veteran in college football. Now, like I said, getting into this game, I thought the biggest turning point was the second quarter of this game. When you look at Tennessee, they really shot themselves in the foot. They get a safety. Alabama scores a touchdown off. Again, after that punt, they score a touchdown. Then the biggest thing, you're looking at a 16-17 game. You're looking at Tennessee on the 1 or 2 yard line, and they're about to punch it in to make it 14-16, and they throw a monumental pick six. Joey Aguilar makes a huge mistake. Xavier Brown, one of the best players in this Alabama defense, jumps that route, and it was smooth sailing there from Alabama. This Tennessee team, again, very similar to LSU for me. I think, again, they have talent on offense. This Tennessee team on defense, they really scare me. Again, we saw 2 top matchups for Tennessee that they're giving up a ton of points to. They gave up a ton of points to Mississippi State. But again, you saw Georgia beat them 44-41, and you see Alabama hang 37 on them. This Tennessee defense is what I have to worry about. I think their offense is really good. I still think Joey Aguilar is a really good college football quarterback. But right now, I don't see them getting out of the SEC just solely on the fact that they have 2 losses right now. They really can't afford another. And this team isn't overly impressive to me where, again, very similar to an LSU team where they face a really true top contender in college football like Alabama, it seems to me like there's a little bit of a gap. Again, against Georgia, there wasn't as big of a gap. Obviously, that was a tight game. They lost 44-41. But Alabama's a team that's too hot right now. They're rolling. Like I said, Ty Simpson is playing like the best quarterback in the country. They were able to rush for 120 yards in this game, even though, again, it really didn't come as a running back as the leading rusher. It was Jeremy Bernard on a couple of rushes. Ryan Williams, in my opinion, looked a lot better in this game. He had one catch in this game that was absolutely spectacular, over the shoulder sliding catch. And again, like I said, you got to get Ryan Williams the ball. You have to get him the ball. He has a 16-yard rush in this game. He has 87 receiving yards. Again, he doesn't have to completely take over the game because this Alabama team has a ton of weapons. And right now, Ty Simpson is distributing the football like no other. But he has to be a big part. Ryan Williams has to be a big part. He doesn't have to be the only option. He doesn't have to take over the game completely. But he has to have a big part like he did in this game. Ty Simpson right now, man. Again, when you look at this Alabama team, like I said, how nobody is taking over for this Alabama team as a receiver, as a running back, and Ty Simpson just looks like a veteran with the way he's able to throw and with anticipation. Like I said, he's been absolutely flawless. 16 touchdowns to 1 interception. He looks cool in the pocket. He played just 4 ranked SEC matchups in a row and came in on top in all of them. And that's going to give him his Heisman case right now with all these big wins. Absolutely love what I'm seeing out of Ty Simpson again. In my opinion, it's so tough right now. Even though I think Ty Simpson is playing the best ball in college football, I still got to give the nod to Julian Saint and Fernando Mendoza right now just because, again, they took care of everybody they need to take care of. But you could argue strength of schedule and what Ty Simpson is doing. And right now he's playing the best football, in my opinion, out of any quarterback in the country. Another game I did want to go over is this Ole Miss Georgia game. Now, in my opinion, when I saw this game and how it was playing out, I truly thought this was going to be a game that Ole Miss wins. I thought Ole Miss had control for the majority of this game. But I thought this game played out very similar to this Tennessee-Georgia game that we just discussed, where Georgia is down multiple scores in the fourth quarter, and Gunnar Stockton plays his best football when he needs to. Gunnar Stockton really, again, he played a flawless game. When you're looking at the numbers, 26 for 31, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He played phenomenal. Put in 2 big scores in the fourth quarter. Like, Gunnar Stockton was unreal in this game. I don't really have much to say, but the one thing that I do want to say about this Georgia team, it's super impressive, like I said. 2 ranked SEC matchups, coming back from behind in the fourth quarter. Your quarterback showing that he has guts, making his best plays of the season when it counts. Like, again, I don't want to take anything away from Georgia. But at the same time, this isn't one of the most confident teams that I am in. Like, for this Georgia team, this isn't one of the most. Why am I like stumped? This isn't the most confident I have ever been in a Georgia team, like, at all. Like, again, this Georgia defense in these ranked matchups look horrible. We saw Georgia at its height in the last 5 to 10 years. They ride on this defense. They usually have a top 3 defense in the country, without a doubt, every year. And you're looking now against Tennessee, you gave up 41. Against Ole Miss, you gave up 35. And I get it. These offenses are explosive, but I did not think this defense for Georgia was going to be this bad in these big matchups. And I know Gunnar Stockton has done it. I know he's done it against Tennessee. I know he's done it against Ole Miss. I don't expect him to continuously shoot out these top-ranked matchups, and that's why I'm not having Georgia as this national championship contender right now. This was an extremely impressive win. I thought Trinidad Chambliss, this was really his chance to make his mark, prove that he's for real, and I still love this guy. I love the story. I thought he played really good in this game. 19 for 36, 263 yards, a touchdown. He rushed for 2 touchdowns. I thought he played really good, but again, in the fourth quarter, when you're playing a top-ranked team in the country like Georgia, You can't stall out. You can't punt. You can't give them the ball. A Kirby Smart team, you just can't do that. And Georgia really came back from behind. I'm just not high on this Georgia team. We saw them lose to Alabama. Again, they are letting up major points in ranked matchups. And the difference is, too, with this Georgia team, I don't think they have the weapons to continuously come back behind and win 40-point shootouts. Again, Nate Frazier played pretty good in this game. Zachariah Branch remains their leading receiver. We see him get between 60 and 80 yards a game, but they have nobody that's consistently is a game changer, game wrecker for this Georgia team. Like, I thought this Ole Miss Georgia game was phenomenal. I thought both quarterbacks played phenomenal. Again, I'm not going to dog on Trinidad Chambliss because I thought he did play a really good football game for 3 quarters, but there was a point in time where you got to close the game against Georgia, and Trinidad Chambliss did not do that. Georgia wins this game, but I'm still not sold on Georgia. Like, I haven't seen them shut down a ranked offense in this whole entire year, so I'm not going to be sold on Georgia right now. Very impressive win. Gunnar Stockton has guts, but I'm still pumping the brakes on Georgia. The next game I want to get into very quick is Notre Dame USC. I thought this was a huge game for both sides. I thought this was a game where flat out both teams really need to have this game. Again, we talked about Notre Dame, how they really can't afford to lose another football game. And not only that, they really got to win comfortably in major matchups. And they did that here. I believe they dominated USC for the majority of this game. I think when you look at Notre Dame's defense, it has finally settled in, where in the first 2 matches of the season, it was questionable. I thought they did a great job limiting USC. When you look at Jaden Mayava making multiple mistakes, 2 interceptions, when you look at a guy in Mekhi Lemon that has been one of the best players in the country, they didn't completely shut him down, but they contained him to only 4 receptions, 76 yards. That's a win if you're this Notre Dame defense. Jacoby Lane did have a really good game. This rushing attack for USC was not the same without Waymon Jordan. King Miller looked really good in last week's matchup. He couldn't really get it going too much, only 3.9 yards per carry. They only rushed for 68 yards total. And again, this was a Notre Dame team very similar to Michigan, like we talked about. They dominated on the defensive side of the ball, and they dominated in the run game. Jeremiah Love is the best running back in the country. You could argue he's one of the best players in the country. When we look at 228 yards and a touchdown, he put Notre Dame in this offense on his back. Jadarian Price also, again, we talk about it time and time again, another NFL back in this offense. He has 87 yards on only 13 carries. He puts in a touchdown as well. This Notre Dame run game is for real. This Notre Dame team is really settling in right now. We saw CJ Carr throw an interception. He only throws for 136 yards. But when you're running the football like you're running the football, who cares how many yards you're throwing for? Again, you have 2 of the best running backs in the country. You have one of the guys that's the best running back in the country. An absolute game changer. And this Notre Dame team, I'm telling you guys, I've said it time and time again, they're going to sneak into the college football playoffs. Whether you like it or not, whether you like the independent schedule, they beat a really good team in USC. They hung with 2 teams in 2 late game losses that are top ranked teams. And they're going to take care of business from here on out. They have a recipe to win football games. Their defense now, like I said, finally has settled in when we had questions on their defense. Their run game in the trenches with their offensive line. Nobody has a run game like them, I believe, in the entire country. Notre Dame, huge win for them. And for a team like USC trying to sneak into the college football playoffs, that has a couple of tough matchups on the back end, they really couldn't afford this loss again. A team that could possibly sneak into the college football playoffs, we'll see what's going to happen with that. But Notre Dame, huge win. They had to have it. Where else are we going to go? I want to also talk about this. Again, they did play Rutgers, Oregon on a bounce back against coming off of an Indiana upset. Oregon absolutely put the pedal to the metal in this game. When you look at Dante Moore, 290 yards, 4 touchdowns. When you look at their rushing attack, you rushed for 415 yards in an in-conference matchup. Absolutely ridiculous. Noah Winnington finally looks like an RB1 in this Oregon offense after multiple years. When you looked at Bucky Irvin, and then when you look at last year as well, this guy was consistently the number 2 with Jordan James as well. Now he looks like a true number 1. He looks absolutely phenomenal. He rushed for 11 yards a carry, 125 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jordan Davidson had 3 carries for 100 yards. De'Aaron Hill Jr., 5 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. 3 different running backs scored in this game. Kenyon Sadiq looked really good as well. There was a huge end-around play to end up going to him. He has 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Corey Moore looked solid, 63 yards and a touchdown. But again, if this Oregon team could run the football like this, I know it's against Rutgers, but watch out. They got multiple running backs. They ride the hot hand. I think they use more running backs than any top team in college football right now, consistently. And again, I just really loved Oregon bouncing back after that Indiana game. I just wanted to highlight that. Another game I did want to talk about for a brief second is Arizona State. We talked about Arizona State being a top contender in this Big 12. And again, they played the 7th-ranked team in the country in Texas Tech. They came down for a game-winning drive. Sam Levitt, again, when the run game isn't there, I believe Sam Levitt is still one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Arizona State had a little bit of a weird year. They lost a game where they couldn't really lose it to Mississippi State. And then last week, again, against Utah, it wasn't even fair. Sam Levitt was out. But Sam Levitt was back in Texas Tech. He leads a game-winning drive. Jordan Tyson, I believe him and Jordan Tyson could be the best connection in college football. Jordan Tyson, I think, is going to go as the first wide receiver drafted in next year's draft. 10 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown. He came up huge. Jaron Hamilton also had 101 yards. We saw Will Hammond, Texas Tech's backup, come in. But we saw Will Hammond in a major in-conference matchup earlier this year be absolutely dominant. It wasn't the case necessarily in this game. Only throws for 167 yards. He throws a costly interception in this game. Again, I think this was a major win for Arizona State. I don't know about Arizona State's college football playoff chances. They're going to have to be probably perfect and then some, because we look at some undefeated Big 12 teams. But huge win for Sam Levitt. Jordan Tyson, absolutely phenomenal. Huge win for this Arizona State team. And then the last game I believe I do want to go over. Well, the one thing I do want to go over, we look at Ohio State beat Wisconsin 34-0. I want to talk about on this recap how I believe Ohio State is so far ahead of everybody in the country right now. When we look at Ohio State's defense, they're letting up about like 9 points a game. I get it, they play Wisconsin, but this is an in-conference matchup where you let up a goose egg. You let up 0 points. This defense, we could go over it week by week. It's absolutely ridiculous. They let up 16 points to Illinois, who's a good football team. But after that, 3 points to Minnesota, who's a good football team. We saw that this Friday. 6 points to Washington, who we still believe is a good football team. 9 points to Ohio, 0 points to Grambling, 1 touchdown to Texas. Like, this team is averaging letting up single-digit points. And the offense is absolutely phenomenal. Julian Sain, again, another guy that's a first-time starter taking over a big program, looks absolutely phenomenal. In this game, I know it's against Wisconsin. 36 for 42, 393 yards, 4 touchdowns. You flat out cannot play a better game. And again, we see multiple running backs take carries: Isaiah West, Bo Jackson, C.J. Donaldson. Carnell Tate might be the most underrated player in the entire country. We're looking at a guy that's arguably a top 3 receiver, but this guy gets completely overshadowed by Jeremiah Smith. Another thing I did want to say as well, the way Carnell Tate runs his routes, the way he contorts his body, like, this is going to be a wide receiver 1 on an NFL offense, and very similar to Emeka Egbuka last year on a crowded offense, being another good player in the offense. Carnell Tate is a guy where all the attention on Jeremiah Smith, where I think it's going to have to stop a little bit, honestly, because Carnell Tate is just going to eat teams up alive because he's that good. This is a guy next year that's going to be a first-round talent in the NFL, and this is a guy that's going to be a number 1 receiver in the NFL. Same thing with Emeka Egbuka last year, where we look back saying, hey, we just keep staring at Jeremiah Smith, and we are underrating these other receivers for Ohio State. Carnell Tate is an absolute stud. He's a top 3 receiver in college football, but he just so happens to be the second option for his team. Ohio State is absolutely ridiculous. Julian Sain, I think, is even more advanced than Will Howard was last year. Julian Sain just flat out does not make any mistakes. He looks great. He's accurate. He's getting the ball to playmakers, and he's now getting to the point where he's taking over games. When you look at 393 yards and 4 touchdowns, like they're not winning these games with Julian Sain. They're winning this game because Julian Sain has a large hand in the pie. He looks phenomenal, and again, he doesn't even have to look that great because this defense is way above what it was last year. I mean, this defense is bar to none the best defense in the country. Ohio State is so far the top national championship contender. It's like unreal. Again, maybe there's a couple of teams that I think could win a national championship. You obviously got to look at Alabama, what they've been able to do the last 4 weeks, like we mentioned earlier in the pod. You got to look at Indiana. Again, this is where we're talking about this landscape changing. I never thought in the beginning of the year that I would give Indiana a true shot at winning the national championship, but you definitely can't count them out. And then I want to see more of Texas A&M. Texas A&M gets a 45-42 win. Their defense didn't look great. Taylor Green, in my opinion, again, people look at Lenore Sellers as being this, size, combination of size, speed, or whatever. But I think Taylor Green is a guy that's super underrated. I think his physical abilities are ridiculous, and his defense just can't play football right now. But again, getting back to my original point with Texas A&M, I think they could be a national championship contender as well. I know it's crazy. Their defense just has to step up more consistently for me, but their offense is bar to none as well. When you look at their offense with Marcel Reed, the way he's playing as a dual threat with the 2 receivers they have, with the multitude of running backs they have, like their offense is insane. I just want to see Texas A&M get truly tested. But right now, that's what it's looking at in college football to cap off this episode. You're looking at Ohio State as the heavy favorite. You got Alabama, that's probably the closest to them. You got Indiana right there in the mix. And Texas A&M, I feel like you can't sleep on as well. Their offense is absolutely phenomenal. Their defense has to get a little more consistent, though, if they want to win a national championship. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays. Drop down below your thoughts on this Week 8 slate. And again, it is winding down. We are seeing things this year that we never thought we would see. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays, and we